Ready? Okay. David Meyer, served the United States Marine Corps in the Republic of Vietnam. So joined military in 1966, went through infantry training and basic training at Camp Pendleton, California, overseas in 1967. I was, of course, a replacement for 1st Battalion 9th Marines that had just recently got shot up pretty bad on July the 4th, 5th and 6th. So I arrived there on July the 18th as a replacement for guys that were wounded and killed in action. So from then on, stayed with 1-9, 1st Battalion 9th Marines, the rest of my tour over there.
And what was the 1-9 called?
The Walking Dead.
Okay. And what about you, sir?
My name's Jerry Zevecke. I joined the Marine Corps in 1968. Got to go see the Republic of Vietnam in 1969. I think I got there somewhere in April. I only got to obtain the rank of Lance Corporal because I was guaranteed a trip to Vietnam, which, back in those days, that was a patriotic thing to do. I believed in what I thought the government was right in telling me the truth and everything, but come to find out that's not quite the way it really shook out. But I was wounded in July of '69, sent back, and then I was discharged in February of 1970. So even though I had a 2-year term, I only served about a year and a half. But when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a Marine. I always heard positive things about the Marine Corps. So when it came time, I was not drafted. I chose to join. And there was no doubt in my mind when I joined what service I was going to. I didn't know if I could do it. Most people don't. You find out you go in a boy and you come out the beginning of a man, the beginning parts of it. But that's about it. As far as I did the same thing as Dave, went to San Diego, then I went to infantry training, and then straight over to Vietnam. We were, like David mentioned, we were replacements. I was in the 3rd Battalion 26th Marines, which their nickname was the Pathfinders, which at the time I did not know that, but I was a big 6'4" guy like me. They had me as a point man, and that's unusual because a 6'4" guy head hits the crest of the hill long before the rest of his body does. So I'm glad I didn't know it then, but it really has played a vital part in how I see things. I am more observant of all the things around me, I think, because of that. And the word that I would describe for me when I got to Vietnam, it used to be I was afraid, fearful. Mm-hmm. The word came across the other day that fit this exactly. I was terrified. Mm-hmm. I came from I don't want to go any deeper.
No, you're okay.
But did you feel like you were, gosh, I'm in this group right here, I've really got to be above and beyond being just a Marine. I got to be
because really you didn't realize then why that nickname was attached to the 9th Marines. I didn't have any fear for a long time. It was a daily routine, and you probably can attest to this, Shelby. You did your daily duties. Yeah, you were out in combat. A lot of times you didn't see anything, patrols, I mean. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you were out and running patrols daily, and you didn't run into anything. So that fear factor dissipated. I went from July of '67 until probably April of '68 before we ran into really heavy combat. Then the fear factor came in because it's like, I'm not going to live through this, you know, it became pretty bad. So, but up until then, I really had no fear factor, you know, it's just daily routine.
Mm-hmm. What about for you? What was your daily
Terrified.
routine like? Yeah, just terrified the whole time?
Yeah, and that's probably part of my own personal makeup, but it could have been something that the Marine Corps taught you too.
Sure.
Is, you know, always be aware, always to that's the Boy Scouts, be prepared. But that is, I also was a Boy Scout, like everybody here. That was part of it. So the only way you can be prepared is to constantly think about, what am I going to do in this situation?
Yeah.
You know, and even though, like David mentioned, that there wasn't a lot of at the beginning. I didn't spend a lot of time there. It's still the potential. Anytime you go out, I remember going out, and the squad leader said, "We are going east and west. If you encounter somebody going north and south, just shoot them." Now, that would be okay. How do I know I'm shooting the enemy?
Right.
And who is, you know, at that point, you can't, in the dark, you can't tell that that's the enemy. Anyhow, that was so terrified of, came from a Christian background.
Sure.
Now all of a sudden, I'm a, quote, trained killer,
Yeah.
basically. It's, you really,
That's a
your
hard
self-defense.
complex.
Yeah, it really was to, when you engage that, when you, what do you, you know, is your first thought how you were brought up, or
Right.
is your first thought survival?
Right.
And the Marine Corps took away that here's how you were brought up, and said you will act like this because this is what's going to cause you to live.
Right.
You and the other guy next to you. So that was a transition
Absolutely.
that, you know, you have to transition out of that back into the world of Christianity.
Yeah.
So.
That was actually like 3 of the questions on here, so that worked.
Was it really?
You guys are on a roll.
Well, we've
let's
spent a
see.
lot of time together, and I pick his brain more than he picks mine because he had more extensive combat than I did. But it's always, we could talk to each other about
Sure.
that,
Well, absolutely.
and he wouldn't go too deep, or he wouldn't get too upset by it or anything like that. I don't know. I always was afraid to talk about it because sometimes it makes people the dreams, the nightmares, you want to call it.
Sure.
You don't want to bring that up in somebody, and you don't want to bring it up in yourself if they exist.
For sure.
But I've had extensive PTSD. Spent years going to a psychologist, and then I took that last thing. The last thing I had was a 13-week course. Where I had to come up with a list of things that were what I perceived were bothering me.
Right.
And that was probably the most rewarding, being able to talk about some of the experiences and to look at this as, sometimes you hold yourself as a prisoner in your own mind. And if you don't if you don't realize that you're doing it, you think that that's how you feel.
Yeah.
And that's not how it is. Anybody can feel, I can tell you a story, and then you can make your own opinion about it or judgment or whatever you want to call it. I can't change that.
Right.
But if I believe what I think you're believing, that just, I don't want to talk about it. But now I can talk about things that I never was able to talk about before.
That's good.
And able to at least not be, I don't want to use the word ashamed, but not as prideful.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you find it, whenever you do talk about, even, I don't want to say less dramatic, but I'll use that phrasing. A less dramatic moment being over there, do you kind of feel like you can kind of move past that a little bit in your mind so that you're not holding on to it so much? Or even some of the dramatic action that you had over there.
Rephrase that question, because I was going to ask you, you kind of clarified it. Ask that question to me again now that I've processed it.
Sure. So, being able to speak about some of those more dramatic moments that had happened, is it easier for you now to kind of, even not going into depth of those questions or those scenarios, is it easier for you to kind of let go of them so you can move forward?
Absolutely. No, there's no doubt in my mind, because I was holding myself prisoner.
Okay.
You know, I was the guilt, and I detest using this word, but that's shame.
Sure.
The shame that I felt was self-imposed.
Sure.
You know, and they referred to it as secondary wounding.
Yes.
Not only were you wounded with that traumatic experience, now your mind won't let you talk about it.
Yeah.
And the only way you can talk about it is to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can, you have to want to be able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to talk about it and to understand it. And boy, when they ask the right questions, a psychologist can just pull things out of you just in the words that you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
She pulls that out, and then you discuss it, and I never even looked at it that way.
Yeah.
I never looked at I was holding myself prisoner. And let me tell you why. See, I was wounded by friendly fire.
Oh.
So if you're a Marine and you are sent back to, after everything heals up, and you sent back to your community, and your community knows that, some of the Marines that are in there are brutal.
Mm-hmm.
They look at, you did something. I didn't do nothing.
Right.
I went over there just like they did, and I would have died over there, you know, if that's what it was called for. But as it is, this happened, and when I got back, I didn't want to talk about it. These guys, like Dave, they were I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
you're
gonna turn this off. They were the guys that I looked up to. You know, I held them in high esteem.
Sure.
Really? You still hold me in high
I
esteem?
do. I do. I know you better. I don't know how to turn this damn thing off. But those are the two guys, and they always kind of made you see. I'm even saying it now. They did, but back then I believe they were the ones that were making me feel bad. It was me.
Mm.
I could have looked them straight in the face and said, "Look, you got lucky. You didn't. That didn't happen to you. But that doesn't mean that I did it to me.
Right.
Somebody else did it to me. And
Right.
was it purposely done? No, it was an accident. But that was hard to talk to, hard to talk about. And
Oh,
prior
for
to probably 2 or 3 years ago, I couldn't have even discussed that with you.
Wow.
Well, you know, I think part of it is too, the more you talk about it, it eases that pain. You know, around the VFW guys that I was with, World War II veterans, you know, to hear their stories. And of course, I had my stories to tell too, but you know, there wasn't a lot of comparison there. So I think that eases the pain the more you talk about it, whether you're talking about it with World War II veterans, fellow Vietnam veterans, Afghan veterans. The more you talk about those combat situations, the more it eases the memories that you have. At least in my experience it does. You know, Jerry and I talk a lot, and we have friends in Scouts that seen combat too, and we talk with them, and I think that eases it. You know, even with family, you know, things will come up and you'll talk about it. Especially my wife. I was married when I went over to Vietnam, so with her support, and then you know, I always think and ask her, well, what did you go through?
Yeah.
You know, reading the papers, because Vietnam was nightly news.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so she's seen on television, oh my gosh, the Marines are surrounded at Quezon. Well, my husband's there. You know, so what kind of fear did you have that, hey, you know, Dave's not coming home because, you know, they're being surrounded, being pounded daily with artillery and rocket fire. So yeah, it you know, I think about that all, you know, quite a bit. that, man, she went through a lot of experience because trying to find out more detail about where I was and what I was doing, and then she would see something on that nightly news. I said, "Oh my gosh, we're living it, but that's one thing. But to see your loved one in that situation, then it's really
But you didn't,
hard on her."
but you didn't think about that when you were over there
No,
and going through all
no,
that. You didn't
no,
think
you
about
don't.
her.
You don't. Yeah, no.
More thinking about yourself and surviving.
Well, you were just doing your job over there.
Exactly. Like I said, this is just daily routine for us, to run out and do patrols. And we'd be out, our outfit would be out for weeks at a time. And we'd come back and replenish and resupply and then go back out because we were constantly in the bush, our outfit. But a lot of those patrols, we didn't run into anything. Or we'd be a backup force for somebody. Or we'd take mortars or artillery rounds, but it didn't last constantly until we broke out of the siege of Quezon, and then we really started running into some heavy resistance to trying to take back the hills that surrounded Quezon. So that's when the fear factor really kicked in for me. Is I've already spent 10 months over there, and I've got 3 months to go. I might not make it now, but luckily I did. So.
And you were in one spot, so it would be easy for the enemy to say, "Okay, well, I know where they're at."
Yeah.
So and then they were really good. North Vietnamese army was very good at what they did. Too damn good sometimes.
Yeah.
Of course, we were better equipped, but I don't know, different frame of mind.
Sure.
I don't know, but I would hate to have thought I'm in a place where they know where my bunker's at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They just zoom it right in there. And when you're being hit, you don't know if the next one that hits is right on top of you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So did you guys have to encounter any of the Vietnamese civilian life? And if so, how did they react to you guys? Did you guys feel uneasy walking through there, or
whether you were on patrol or just, out for, I guess, a stroll or whatever, fun?
Well, my experience
that was
of
possible.
that is that when we did patrols and we would come upon a village, we would search that village to as much as we could without really disrupt. But the Vietnamese that we encountered pretty much ignored us. They didn't want to have anything to do with us. We went through their little hooches and stuff to search for weapons or any sign that they were supporting North Vietnamese or Viet Cong. But mostly they just tried to avoid you. Our outfit did security for a CB unit that was working on number 9 highway or something of that nature. And we were right there in the village where the CBs were working on there. But the Vietnamese would go out of their way to avoid contact with us. Now the kids were just like kids today.
Sure.
They wanted to come up to you and touch you and wanted to know if you had any candy or cigarettes that you could hand out. So the kids were always friendly to us, but the adults, the Vietnamese adults, just tried to ignore us or stay away from us. They seem to be good people that just wanted to live their daily lives and hopefully this war goes away for them,
Sure.